Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mom Chats podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. Today's conversation is one that's just going to be so encouraging. I am here with my good friend Candice, who is amazing. She is a mom of 6. Many of those kids are my friends, and so I am just so excited to get to hear about her journey in motherhood and just all of the wisdom that she has for us today. And so Candice, can we just start with just getting to know a little bit of who you are, your story, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Sure. So like Kennedy said, my name's Candice Wagenleitner. So my journey to motherhood didn't start the normal way. I met my now husband when I was 15, Randy, and we ended up pregnant when I was 16. And I had Austin. We got married when I was 17, and then we had 2 more biological boys by the time I was 20.
Crazy.
So yeah.
3 boys by the time you're 20.
So that was a little overwhelming. So I was a stay-at-home mom most of my life. In 2009, when our boys were 9, 11, and 13, we adopted Eliana from Korea. She has special needs, and she's 14 now. And then we went on a mission trip. We had said Eliana was enough. We were very overwhelmed kind of with all her needs, and so we were like, we're going to start a orphan ministry. We felt like God was calling us to start an orphan ministry because we knew God's heart for the orphan. We knew just how much we're grateful to be adopted into God's family. And so we just wanted to pour that out and just love on orphans. And so we, at our old church, we kind of we're like, okay, we're going to go on this mission trip with an organization, and they basically do sponsorships, kind of like Compassion or World Vision, and they were like, we're going to go to Ethiopia, and we're going to locate a care point of orphans that your whole church can sponsor, like families can sponsor kids, and then you'd go on trips like twice a year to go visit the kids. Like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, you're like right up our alley.
Yes,
sign us up.
Yes, and we had prayed about it, and we were really like dead serious. Like, if we do this, we can't adopt again for like 5 more years. We were still in debt. We were overwhelmed. There's just a lot. We had our 4 kids, and so we were pretty convinced that adoption was not in our future for a few more years. And so we went on this trip, and we actually spent time with almost 1,500 children.
No way.
It was insane. It was wonderful. And so the very last 2 days of the trip, the one who was leading it, he said, we're going to go to an orphanage that's already been sponsored by a church in Arizona, so you can see what the difference is between just like a government orphanage or care point and this one who's sponsored by a Christian organization. And so I had even got sick, and I just wasn't even sure if I was going to go, and then I just decided to go. We went, and as soon as we drove into the orphanage, Randy got out of the car, and I was kind of messing with stuff, and I got out, and he's already all the way in front of me, and there's this beautiful girl that had taken his arms and wrapped them around her and looked up at him. And I was like, oh, that's so cute, this little orphan girl. And I took a picture, and she has that picture up in her room. So needless to say, we fell in love. We found out that she had a biological brother that kind of kept hanging around, and we just wanted to know their story. And long story, a little bit shorter. 18 months later, and 3 more trips later, we ended up.
How old were they at the time?
They were almost 11 and 13 when they came home. So at that time, they were 10 and a half and like almost 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. I've never heard that part of the story. I didn't even know that. I love it.
Yeah. So that's how Natty and Brett joined our family. That's how we became 6. And so that was in 2012. And then I don't know how to explain what happened next, but basically our family went through a lot of struggles. Them coming home, they didn't speak English. I ended up homeschooling them. I taught them to read, how to write and everything. And in the midst of that, our oldest son, Austin, was just really struggling with his mental health. I was struggling with my mental health, but didn't really know what was going on with me. I ended up, I don't know if we want to talk about that later.
You can share a glimpse of it now, and then we can go into.
So I had a lot of mental health struggles, and we ended up moving to Hume Lake for a year to kind of regroup and try to get closer as a family. That didn't work out the best, but it was great for Natty and Meret, our 2 Ethiopian children. It was perfect for them. And then we moved back, and we just continued. I would say like mental illness it stole a lot from our family. It was a very rough, very, very hard road that we were on for many years.
Right.
And we kind of seemed like we were kind of on a better road.
Yeah.
In 2017. And then in May of 2017, our oldest son, Austin, he died in a car accident. And so that kind of obviously was the hardest thing we've ever gone through.
Totally.
So just kind of like a little part of that, basically where I am now, that summer, because I was in May, that summer, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just crying. I was grieving, obviously.
Right.
I lost my oldest son. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. Like that was my life, was being a mom.
Right.
And everyone was in school. I just didn't know what to do with myself, and I was crying, and I remember I felt the Lord just really just gently nudging me and telling me, I want you to get up off the couch. I have a plan for you.
Wow.
And you're going to do great things. And I'm like, I don't even know. What would I do?
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool.
And it was like, you're going to go to school. Well, I barely graduated high school, you know.
You were married at the time, or almost married.
Married with a 1-year-old when I graduated.
Oh my goodness.
And so I never went to college or anything. And I'm like, what would I even do? And I just, like, in the back of my mind, always, we have gone on many mission trips. And every time we've gone, I've always been like, I wonder, like, if I had a skill like nursing, like I felt like I would be able to contribute more, like on the mission field or wherever, whether it's local or global. And so I was like, I wonder if I could like be a nurse. Am I even smart enough to go to school? Like it's been so long. You know? And so I just, Randy and I prayed about it, and he's like, why don't you just start with like a couple classes and see where it goes? Like try a semester. So, that was over 5 years ago. Yeah. And I finished my prerequisites at community college, and then I got into the nursing program at National, and I just graduated in July of this year, and now I'm a registered nurse at Valley Children's Hospital.
I love it. Yeah. I feel like this is just like the best time to have this conversation, because it's like the whole story, you know, like in 5 years from now, we're going to get to look at even more, but this is great. And I feel like there's so many questions that I have in there, but before jumping into like the details of everything, something that I always want to ask is, what is the biggest lie you believe going into motherhood? Obviously, like you kind of said, like your journey to motherhood wasn't maybe as expected or maybe as you would have pictured it. Like, okay, all of a sudden 16, pregnant, still in high school. What was like what was something unexpected going into motherhood?
I thought of two things.
Yeah.
The first would be basically, everyone told me your life is over.
Yeah.
Your life is going to be over because you're having a baby and you're not going to get to dance. I was a dancer. You're not going to get to go places. You're not going to get to do anything but like be a mom.
Right.
And that's, it was a very serious thing that people would say to me. And so you need to choose adoption. I even had someone told me I should have an abortion. Like it just, because it really was heavy. Like, how, like, is it really like the end of my life?
Right. Totally.
Baby? But I knew like he was ours. Like we knew we were going to get married and so that was a lie. It was a huge lie. The next two boys were definite surprises.
I love it.
But it was, my life wasn't over. It was just beginning.
Totally.
It was, motherhood has been really the biggest blessing of my entire life. Just aside from just being a believer and knowing God's grace in my life. And then the other lie I would say is I felt like in order to be a mom, I needed to have it all together. I needed to be perfect.
Good. Yeah, wow.
And I feel bad for moms nowadays because we didn't have, I'm so old. We did not we did not have phones. We did not have Pinterest or Instagram or any of that.
Right.
So we weren't comparing to all these hundreds and thousands of other women.
Right.
It was just who was around us, like in our church circle. But even still, even back then, 25 years ago, it was, well, they have it all together. I'd go to someone's house and everything would be perfect. And then I'd come home to my apartment and be like, gosh, it's a mess. There's dishes, there's toys. And I really thought that was what, to be a mom, you had to have it all together. And it took me many years to really kind of like break free of that.
Totally.
And I remember someone, this isn't really biblical, but someone had said, good enough is the new perfect. And it like just kind of giving me that freedom, like it's good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get through the day and the dishes don't get done, it's good enough.
Yeah.
They'll be there tomorrow.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think those are really the two.
That's so good. And I think that is like so relatable to any season of life, but like especially with motherhood, because I feel like those are both two thoughts that like I feel like I've dealt with, in the sense of like, oh, I don't have it all together, or I feel like my life is going to be over. Like I feel like that was something that I definitely believed for a bit too, which I think is so good to highlight that. Mm-hmm. What is something sweet that you've never expected?
So one of the things, because I was so young, and I still had believed that, like, my life was over, I had kind of always looked forward to the day when my kids would be in school. So when they were young, when they were toddlers and busy and hard, and like, oh, okay, when they turn 5 or whatever, they're gonna go to kindergarten. And the funny thing is our Austin, our oldest, he went to kindergarten, really struggled. He had a lot of learning disabilities. And when he was in first grade, they basically said he has to be moved back to kindergarten. We're like, well, he's already too old. And we tried to get him in another school, another district. We tried everything. And some moms around me that I knew had started homeschooling that year. And I was like, I will never do that. And I just was not that, like, you have this like image of like a homeschooling mom.
Believe me, a story of my life.
Where you wear denim dresses and and make your own bread or whatever, And I'm like, I'm not that person. Right. I will never homeschool my kids. But again, like the Lord is like, actually, this is what I want you to do. Yeah. And so I started homeschooling, and it was going to only be for a year. Well, then it turned into a decade. And I homeschooled all the other kids for a while. We were back and forth. Some went to like 1 year of school here and there. We always did what was best for each child.
I love that.
But the surprising thing was how much I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it was hard. Everything is hard when you have kids. It's harder, but it was so just so joyful.
Yeah.
Like being able to spend those years with my kids when they would have been at school for 8 hours or whatever a day.
Totally.
I got all that extra time with them. I read to them. We were in the Word together. We did all kinds of field trips. We did mission trips, like things that we would never have time for.
Oh, for sure.
Had we not, been home. And then so that part was very sweet. That all of those years.
I love it.
And then I think for me now, I have all these adult kids. I have the 4 adult kids, and now 3 are married. And really the joy of my life is, I think of 3 John 1:4, I think, where Paul says, John says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth.
Yeah, that's so true.
That is just so relatable, because that is my biggest joy. Is my kids have not been perfect. No one is perfect.
Right.
They've had all of them have had their ups and downs, and you pray for them, and you just hope that they remember something.
Yeah.
But to see my 4 adult children really walking with the Lord, serving, leading their families, it really is the biggest joy of my life. So
that's the best. And I think that that's such good perspective, even going back to like what you were saying about the homeschooling, because like you were like, oh, I can't wait till they're 5, and then all of a sudden they're 5 and you're like, okay, wait, hold on, you gotta like regroup a little bit. But I think that's such a sweet perspective that you got to learn in the midst of that, of like it was still like a very much so a sacrifice for you, but now you're like obviously so grateful for those years and those times that you got to have with them that you wouldn't have gotten had it just been perfect in the school system, and it would have just checked all the boxes, which I love that you also said that you did whatever each kid needed in each season, because I think that's like sometimes in culture it's like, oh, what is it gonna be like, just can it and you do it all right. And I love that it was like changing with who needed what. And also just to echo what she said about her kids, they're all amazing. Like they lead our church literally. Like I don't know what we would do without them, and they're just the most fun.
And I affectionately, all my daughter-in-laws, they're my children too, I call them now. So all of them, I really adore them so much. So,
it's so much fun. They're the best. I love them. Okay, so something you touched on is obviously going back to school after like 2 decades, close to, maybe more, maybe less, of being a stay-at-home mom. Like, what was that whole dynamic like? Barely graduating high school to just like going in, being a stay-at-home mom, doing the grind for a couple of decades, adoption, mental health, all the things in between, and then all of a sudden like going back to school. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I kind of want to dive into what just that looked like for you, even of like so many years of serving your home, but now getting to have like a career outside of your home, like obviously you kind of said it was a little bit unexpected, but just what was that whole experience and process like?
So I want to just like take a moment. I think one of the things that's easy to do with our culture is to kind of like elevate these careers and like becoming a nurse. It really is amazing. It's extremely hard right now because I'm still learning everything.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I'm not just saying this, like, the hardest job I've ever had was being a mom.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Like, being a nurse is really hard. But being a mom, we shouldn't discount that.
Totally.
It really is just, and whether your kids go to school or stay home, whether you work outside the home, work inside the home, whether you're stay at home full time, like, being a mom, it really is the most important.
That's good.
The most important job that you'll have. But it's, so all that to say.
Yes, I love that.
But yeah, going to school, all my kids were adults except Eliana. She's our one from Korea. And she has intellectual disabilities and some anxiety, OCD. And so she's very difficult. She's a challenge for Randy and I. So really that's been the hardest thing, is being gone from her, and kind of the bulk of, caring for her falls on Randy.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I'm very grateful. He has supported me 100% from the beginning of this journey. Like, I have cried, I have said, I'm quitting, I can't do this. And he's like, no, you've got this.
Yeah.
Like, I know,
that's the best.
and God, what God has called you to, he'll be faithful to bring it to completion. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And there were so many days I didn't believe that, because I was just so overwhelmed, and then seeing my kids even cheering me on as well.
Oh, that's the best.
They, it's just, it's been, like I said, it's been hard, going to school, really full time.
Yeah.
Was like a job. And then now working, when you're not used to working, and then you go into 12-hour shifts.
And you're like, wait, this is a lot. Yeah, for
so,
sure.
It's been a lot, and Randy's been by my side the whole time. And I think that's really important, too, is having a spouse that, like, we're both each other's cheerleaders,
Yes.
we
wow.
both, it's like we know, like, we want God's best for him, like what, for each other.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, just kind of knowing that, like,
Totally.
he knows, like, this, God's called me to this, so, like, he's going to encourage that.
Yeah.
And then as far as, like, my goal for being a nurse was not actually just to, like, work at a hospital. It's actually to gain experience so that I can do medical missions.
Yeah. Can't wait for that.
And so, and then Randy wants to join, we want to do it together.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like, I know this is like a little bit off tangent, but the times when Randy and I are the closest are when we're serving together.
Yeah. That's the best.
Yeah. When we've been living on mission, that's been when we're definitely the closest. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love that you even highlighted the part about, like, yes, a nurse is a great career and obviously took so much hard work and, diligence to get to that point, but just even more importance on, being a mom in that, which is great. Okay. So you obviously touched on this in your story a little bit, and I kind of want to close with just floor is open on however you want to, like, give advice or wisdom or whatever in just the world of mental health while also being a mom. Like, obviously you touched on navigating loss, which is a whole thing in and of its own. And then you also, like, were a mom during that time. So, like, navigating the loss of your son while also being a mom to 5 other kids still on earth, right? And then you also touched on, like, your own mental health, and then also, like, Eliana. I don't even know exactly what the question is, but, like, floor is open. What does that look like? What would be advice? Mental health even in the church, like, just all the things. Go for it.
Okay. So, let's see. As far as my own journey with mental illness, one of the hardest things was believing the lie that depression was a sin. And I literally had women telling me that I wasn't praying enough. I wasn't in Bible study enough. If I just could muster up more, positive thinking and memorize more scripture, then I wouldn't be depressed. And I really believe that I was in every Bible study. I was trying everything, and I struggled. And so for years, it was kind of a secret that I was struggling. Only my family at home really knew. And but then I had several suicide attempts. I was in such a bad place that I attempted to end my life. And I know most people out there would be like, how could you be a mom and a wife and, like, try to end your life? And it's because it wasn't me. It was the illness, like, taking over me. And my brain just wasn't right. Because now I look back and I'm like, I was not. And so I was in and out of a few different psychiatric hospitals at times, and it was a long road. But I finally was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and some would think like, oh my gosh, like you have, you're diagnosed, like it's the end of the world. But it was freeing for me, because I was like, finally there's like a name to what I've felt, because I would be, one minute I'd be depressed, and then I'd be like super angry, and I couldn't like put my finger on why, because everything was going fine, and
right.
And so it was a journey of getting on the right medication and getting into therapy, and still being in the Word and still praying and all of that. Because your mental health, it's also spiritual health. It's emotional. It's everything.
Right.
But sometimes our brains just, we need that like extra little boost. We might need medication, and it's not a sin to have medication.
Right.
I think of my patients at the hospital, if they have diabetes, they're taking their medicine. If they have a heart condition, they're taking their medicine. Like, I have, my brain doesn't work the complete, like everyone else's. And so I take medication, and there's times I've tried to get off the medication because I felt like, oh, like, I don't know, ashamed. And then it's always back down. And so I've been on, the same thing for about 5.5 years, and I've been stable. And the thing that really kind of, how I believe that it's like all encompassing, is because when Austin died, I was not suicidal. I was not, I was grieving heavily. Like, I miss my son. I still do. But I was not hopeless. Totally. And that's the thing and so kind of going into about Austin, he struggled pretty much his whole life. And towards 17, 18, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And if you don't know anything about schizophrenia, basically, there's a lot of delusions, there's hallucinations, you're just not in touch with reality. And so Austin had been in and out of psychosis many times, and it was a really hard road. He had a hard life for the last several years. And he would try to self-medicate. And that's what, a lot of us do that, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or, binging Netflix. And we all try to self-medicate in some way that's not healthy. And so for him, it was substance. And so we tried to navigate that as best we could. I felt like he was doing a little bit better. He was finally on the right medication that year. He still had some ups and downs, but he got a job. Like, things were kind of looking up. And then him and his friends said they were going to go get ice cream one night, and he never came home. He had gotten into a car accident with his two friends, and him and one friend, they both passed, and then the other one, he lived. And there's times when you like wonder, like, what if he were the one that lived?
Wow.
But the amazing thing is that Austin and his friend Aaron, they were both believers.
Wow.
And the one in the back was not. And it just was like this, like, thing that Randy always reminds all of us is that Austin's healed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's good.
Yeah. Wow.
He's, sorry.
Oh, no.
He's in heaven.
Yeah.
And he's worshiping Jesus, where we all want to be.
Totally.
It's us here on earth who are struggling, with the loss, but he's good.
Yeah. Wow. What perspective.
And just to know that and have that hope of heaven, that's how I get through.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me all the time, like, how do you do that? How do you go to school? How do you
Right.
live your life with
Right.
this loss? And I just say it's the hope of heaven. It's knowing that he's with our Savior for eternity. Like, he's good, and so.
That's such amazing perspective to have. What was it like, obviously, like, you're grieving as a mom when Austin passes, but then also, like, your other kids and, like, that was their oldest brother. What was that like, navigating, obviously, helping them grieve, also dealing with your own grief, understandably? What was that dynamic like?
To be honest, we didn't navigate that very well. I think for the first pretty much a year, Randy and I were on two different wavelengths. Like, I wanted to talk about Austin and, like, look at all the pictures and watch the videos and just, like, I wanted to constantly be, like, reminded of him and his life. And Randy was like, I can't look at a picture. I can't watch a video. I can't, because it hurts too much.
Yeah.
And he kind of wanted to more be in kind of control of, like, when it's not like he never cried. He just was like, this is my time to, he wanted to be in control of that.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to navigate that with all of our kids, because
it was different for everyone, I'm sure. Yeah.
And, like I said, like, and we had a couple of our kids really struggled, and they went through their own challenges, where we were just like, are they ever going to come back to the Lord? And so, I don't feel like we navigated that really well. Now we're kind of going back to that, like, okay, we're sorry that because, obviously, like, this had never happened, and we didn't really know what to do. So they were all in high school, and that's just a hard time for any kid. And then to lose someone so important in their life was hard. And so now we do talk about Austin, and we'll share videos especially with their wives, the three boys, their wives, and because they never got to know him.
Totally.
And so, but we always think, Austin would he would be so happy to see our big growing family. And so
I love it. That's so good. Okay, kind of just in closing thoughts, what would be a piece of encouragement that you have for maybe the mom who is struggling with maybe her own mental illness and not feeling like she has it all together, or maybe feeling like her life is over? What would be encouragement to her?
Well, one thing that never helped me was when an older woman would say, cherish this time because they grow up so fast. And
always.
One day you'll look back and it will have been in a blink. And while it's true, it does go by fast. It was not helpful in the moment because I was drowning.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like life
I'm
is
trying
so
to enjoy
hard.
it, but I feel like I can't even catch my breath. Right.
So for me, well, my encouragement is, one, just stay in the Word. Like, if you can, what I would do, because there was never like, oh, I'm going to get up and have my quiet time and da-da-da. It was like, I had my Bible open on the kitchen table, and it was always there, because then
just in case you get a second.
I'd put them in their high chair and they'd eat chicken nuggets, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to read a couple verses or whatever.
I love it.
Do a little bit of Bible study here and there. But, and then turning on praise music, worship, they grew up with those little like Cedar Mont worship, music.
I love it.
But also just if you are struggling with your mental health, if you're feeling that hopeless feeling, if you feel like people would be better off without you, or your kids deserve someone different, like if you are really feeling that, then please reach out. Like if you know me, reach out to me. if you have someone that you trust in your life, reach out to them, because this world needs you. We need, one of the things that always helped me was when a friend, I would tell them when I was doing well that if they could just check in and say, I'll see you tomorrow. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, like if I can just make it to tomorrow, then I'll see my friend. Like my friend will check in with me or whatever. And so if you're the friend who has someone, a friend, a family member who's struggling with mental illness, like be that friend to them. Check in with them. How are you doing? Like, hey, can I bring over coffee? The kids might be running around crazy, but like sit on the couch, even if there's laundry everywhere. Like just sit and be, because yes, the years do go by, but it's hard. Yeah. I know. It's hard. Whether you have 1 kid, 6 kids, 12 kids, like it's hard.
Yeah. So, wow. That's good. I love it. Such a good encouragement. Well, thank you for being with us today. This was so encouraging to get to glean from your wisdom and get to hear about your life and how you navigated things. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Mom Chats podcast. We will see you guys next time.